I still remember the first time he said my name. Aaliyah. Like it mattered. Like I mattered. It was during my cousin's engagement. Everyone was dancing, loud, laughing, but I was in the kitchen, avoiding the noise. That's when I saw him. Zayn. Not loud. Not flashy. Just calm. He smiled at me as he reached for a bottle of water. "You don't like crowds?" he asked. I shook my head. "I like watching them more than being in them." He smiled again. "You're different." Those 2 words stayed with me longer than they should have. The next day, I got a message on Instagram. "Zayn. Hope the noise didn't get too much for you, smiley face." I smiled like a fool. We started talking. Not flirting. Just talking. About life. About books. About how people pretend too much. He listened. And I felt seen. Days turned into weeks. And somehow, I started waiting for his good morning more than anything else. Was it love? I didn't know. But it felt like something real. They say sisters are your first best friends. Mine was no different, or so I thought. Sarah. She was everything I wasn't. Confident. Outgoing. Always surrounded by people. And somehow, always getting what she wanted. But that night, I trusted her. I needed to tell someone. She walked into my room, hair still damp from a shower, scrolling her phone. "You've been smiling a lot lately," she teased. "Who's the lucky guy?" I blushed. And just like that, I told her. About Zayn. How we met. How he noticed the little things, like how I tied my hair when I was nervous. How he listened when no one else did. Sarah smiled, her eyes lighting up. "Wow, finally. You deserve someone nice. He sounds different." I nodded. "He is. I feel like I can be myself with him." She picked up one of my bangles from the table, played with it absently. "Well, don't let him go." I laughed. "I think he might actually like me." She didn't say anything. Just smiled, and stared at the bangle a little too long. A few days passed. Zayn was still texting, sweet, thoughtful, just like before. But something was different, and I couldn't explain it. He used to reply in minutes. Now, hours. Sometimes, not even until the next day. I told myself he was busy. Told myself not to overthink. But my heart, it noticed. One evening, I was sitting on the sofa, laughing at something he sent. Sarah walked in. She glanced at my phone. "Still talking to your dream guy?" she smirked. I nodded shyly. "He's been a little distant lately, but maybe he's just stressed." She sat beside me, casually scrolling her own phone. Guys are like that. When they get bored, they pull away. I looked at her. "You think he's bored of me?" She shrugged. "I'm just saying, don't get too attached." Her words cut deeper than I admitted. But I still defended him. "He's not like that." She smiled. But it wasn't warm. It was the kind of smile you give when you know something. but choose not to say it. That night, Zane didn't message me at all. And even though I stared at my phone till 2 a.m., I convinced myself he'd text in the morning. But some silences are louder than words. It was a Sunday afternoon. The kind where the house feels quiet but not peaceful. Zane was supposed to come over. Not for me, at least, not officially. My parents had invited a few family friends. Zane was one of them. I wore a soft pink kurta. Nothing dramatic. But I wanted to look nice. "You look pretty," Sarah said as she walked past my room. "For no one in particular, I'm sure." She laughed. I smiled weakly, brushing off the sting. Downstairs, people gathered. Laughter. Tea. The clinking of cups. I scanned the room, and there he was. Zane. Talking to my father. Smiling. He didn't look at me, not once. I stood near the stairs, quietly waiting. Then someone called my mom from the kitchen. She asked me to fetch a tray. As I walked toward the hallway, I heard laughter. A familiar voice. I peeked through the kitchen door. And there they were. Sarah and Zane. Standing way too close. His head tilted toward her. Her hand lightly on his arm. She laughed, not forced, but real. And his eyes? They were soft. The kind of look I used to get. The kind I hadn't seen in weeks. I froze. The tray nearly slipped from my hand. They didn't notice me. Or maybe they did. And didn't care. I turned around, walked back upstairs. Each step heavier than the last. And for the first time since I met Zane, I didn't feel special. I felt replaced. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her hand on his arm. His smile. The way he used to look at me. But I needed to hear it from him. I couldn't live in this silence anymore. So I texted. "Can we talk? Just 5 minutes. Please." No reply. I waited. The next morning, I tried again. Still nothing. By evening, I sent one more message. "I saw you and Sarah. If there's something going on, I deserve to know." This time, he replied. "It's not what you think. That's all." No explanation. No honesty. Just a wall. I stared at the message for a long time, heart pounding. I typed. "Then tell me what it is." He left me on read. That was it. No voice. No answers. No apology. Just the sound of my own breath. Trying to stay steady. While my heart shattered silently inside my chest. They say heartbreak is loud. But mine was quiet. It was in the way I deleted his number. In the way I smiled through dinner. In the way I cried into my pillow, so no one would hear. Because I wasn't just losing a boy. I was starting to lose my sister too. Something changed about Sarah. It wasn't just her makeup or the new dresses. It was the way she carried herself now. Like she was holding a secret she didn't want to share, but also didn't care if it showed. She started humming love songs while doing her hair, smiling at her phone, then quickly turning it over. One day, I walked into our shared room, and she jumped, like I caught her doing something. "Relax," I said quietly. "It's just me." "Yeah," she replied, without looking up. "Just you." Her words stung, though maybe they weren't meant to. Or maybe they were. She used to ask me for help with outfits. Now she just said things like, "I don't think pink suits you. It's a little childish." Or, "You're too sensitive. That's why you get hurt so easily." I didn't fight back. I just watched. Watched her become the center of attention. Watched my parents praise her cooking, her clothes, her smile. I faded into the background, like a character whose part in the story had quietly ended. And somewhere deep down, I knew. She didn't just take my glow. She took him. And the worst part, she wasn't even pretending to hide it anymore. It started like any ordinary evening. My mother called us to the living room. Her voice was cheerful, too cheerful. "Girls, come sit. Your father and I have something exciting to share." I sat down, heart already racing. Something in me just knew. Sarah walked in a moment later, smiling, cheeks glowing. She looked like someone who already knew what was coming. My father cleared his throat. "Sarah's rishta has been finalized." The words hit me like glass shattering in my ears. I blinked. "What?" I whispered. My mother clapped her hands. "Yes. And guess who the lucky groom is?" She paused for dramatic effect. My world slowed down. "Zane." Can you believe it? Zane's family came forward formally. "It's official." I couldn't breathe. I stared at Sarah. She didn't even flinch. Just smiled. Like this had always been hers. "Aaliyah," my mom asked, noticing my silence. "Aren't you happy for your sister?" I opened my mouth, but no words came out. I just stood up and walked out of the room. No one followed. Not even her. In that moment, everything I thought was real, everything I thought I was building with Zane, it crumbled. Not with a fight, not with a goodbye, but with a family announcement. I locked the door, turned off the lights, sat on the cold floor of my room, and for the first time in years, I let myself fall apart. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly, completely. Tears streamed down my face, but I didn't make a sound, because crying out loud would mean someone might hear me. And I didn't want their pity. I didn't want anyone to knock on the door and say, "It'll be okay." Because it wouldn't. He chose her. My sister. The one I trusted with every secret I had. I thought I was building something real. Turns out, I was just watching a story unfold from the sidelines. And the role of bride was never mine to play. I stared at my phone. No messages from Zane. Not even a fake excuse. Not a single word. Just silence. Like I never existed in his world at all. And in that moment, I didn't feel angry. I felt invisible. And somehow, that hurt the most. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them together. Her smile. His silence. By morning, I couldn't take it anymore. I walked into Sarah's room without knocking. She was standing by the mirror, adjusting her earrings. Calm. Pretty. Collected. She looked at me in the mirror and smirked slightly. You look like you haven't slept. I didn't respond. Why didn't you tell me? I asked, voice shaking. She turned around slowly. Not guilty. Not surprised. Tell you what? That you were seeing Zane behind my back. She raised an eyebrow, like I was being dramatic. Aaliyah, don't be naive. He was never yours. My breath caught in my throat. He made me believe I was, I whispered. Sarah stepped closer. That's your problem. You believe too easily. Her words were knives. Not screamed, not yelled, just softly placed, one after another. He got bored. Maybe he liked your innocence for a while. But in the end, men choose women who know what they want. You stole him, I said. She shrugged. No one can steal what was never truly yours. And just like that, she turned back to the mirror. Like our conversation didn't matter. Like my heartbreak was an inconvenience to her makeup routine. I stood there. Not as her sister. Not as the girl who loved him. But as the afterthought in their perfect little love story. The wedding day came faster than I imagined. Too fast. Too cruel. The house was glowing, lights, flowers, laughter echoing through the halls. And me? I sat in my room, staring at the dress my mother had laid out for me. Soft gold. With pale pink embroidery. The kind of dress you'd wear to your sister's wedding. Not your funeral. Because that's what it felt like. Every smile I faked was a nail in the coffin of the girl I used to be. You have to come out, my mom said through the door. You're her only sister. What will people think? What will people think? Not what will Aaliyah feel. I got dressed. Painted a smile over the cracks. Walked out like I hadn't spent the last week crying into my pillow. And then I saw him. Zane. In ivory sherwani. Looking like a dream I used to have. He glanced at me. For a second. Just a second. But in that moment, my entire past looked me in the eye. And said nothing. I stood by the staircase as they exchanged rings. As everyone clapped. As Sarah beamed with pride. And me? I clapped too. Because sometimes, the only thing more painful than losing is pretending you're happy for the person who took what was never meant to be theirs. I slipped away from the crowd. Found the quietest corner of the hall. Behind the curtain near the side window. The laughter and music still reached me. But it felt distant. Like I wasn't really there. Just a ghost. Watching a life that could have been mine. That's when I heard footsteps. I turned, and it was him. Zane. He stopped when he saw me. Like he wasn't expecting this encounter. Neither was I. For a second, we just stood there. Silence filling the air like fog. Then finally, I asked the only question that still echoed in my chest. Why? He looked down. It just happened. Just happened? Just happened? I felt my jaw tremble. You made me believe I mattered. That it was real. He looked at me again. Softly. It was. For a while. A while. He said it like we were some passing rainstorm. Like what we had was just weather. You could have told me, I whispered. Before the wedding invite. Before the ring. Before she walked down the aisle. He looked away. I didn't know how. And in that moment, I realized something. Zane wasn't a villain. He was a coward. He didn't lie because he was cruel. He lied because it was easier. Because silence hurts less. For him. Congratulations, I said. You got what you wanted. I walked past him. He didn't follow. Didn't stop me. Didn't say my name. And that silence? It was the loudest heartbreak of all. The wedding was over. The guests had left. The lights were being taken down. The flowers were wilting faster than my trust ever did. I sat alone in the backyard. No makeup now. No earrings. Just me, and the ache that had taken permanent space in my chest. That's when I heard her heels. Sarah. The bride. The sister. The thief. She stood behind me for a second before sitting beside me on the bench, like we were just two sisters sharing a moment. You were quiet today, she said, almost amused. I didn't respond. I thought you'd cry. Or make a scene. Honestly, I was prepared for it. Still, silence. She tilted her head. You know what hurts more? She asked. The fact that even after everything, you still thought he'd choose you. I turned to look at her. Not with anger. Not with hatred. Just calm. And you still think winning him means you've won something. That made her flinch. She laughed, but it was nervous now. Keep telling yourself that if it helps you sleep. No, I said. What helps me sleep is knowing I never had to steal anyone to feel loved. Her smile faded. Just for a second. She stood up, brushing her dress off. Enjoy your loneliness, Aaliyah. She walked away. But something was different. This time, I didn't feel broken. I felt clear. Because for the first time in weeks, I realized they can have each other. But they'll never have the peace that comes with a clean heart. 2 weeks after the wedding, I opened my old journal. The pages were blank. Just like I had been feeling. But that day, something inside me shifted. I didn't cry when I saw their wedding photos. didn't flinch when I heard her laughter echoing down the hallway. Instead, I picked up my pen. And I wrote. Not about them. Not about him. Not even about the betrayal. I wrote about me. My heart. My softness. My silence that held more truth than their loud celebrations ever did. Each night, I filled more pages. Some shaky. Some angry. Some soft. But all of them honest. Writing became my therapy. My rebellion. My way of reminding myself. I was still here. Still whole. Even if they never said sorry. One afternoon, I showed a short story to my old literature teacher. She called me the next day. Aaliyah, this story, it's powerful. You should publish it. I laughed. It's just a journal. No. It's survival, on paper. That stayed with me. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something that didn't ache. I felt purpose. A month after the wedding, I submitted my short story anonymously to a local magazine. No name. No photo. Just words, raw, trembling, honest. I didn't expect much. Maybe a rejection. Maybe nothing at all. But then, an email came. We read your piece, The Girl Who Watched Her Heart Walk Away. We want to publish it. Your voice is needed. I stared at the screen for a long time. Not blinking. Not breathing. They didn't know who I was. They didn't know about Zane. Or Sarah. But they saw me. Through my words. The magazine printed it 2 weeks later. I picked up a copy from a local bookstore. My hands shaking as I turned to page 14. There it was. My pain. In ink. But it didn't hurt this time. It felt like release. A woman beside me read the headline and whispered, I feel like this was written for me. I smiled. Because maybe it was. Maybe heartbreak doesn't just break you. Maybe it carves out space for someone else to feel seen too. It was a Friday evening. I was reading quietly in the garden when my phone buzzed. Zane. A message. Did you write this? Attached was a photo of the magazine article. My story. The girl who watched her heart walk away. I didn't reply. Another message followed. It felt like you were talking about us. Were you? I stared at his name on the screen. For a moment, the weight in my chest returned. But not pain. Just clarity. After all this time. After the silence. The betrayal. The wedding. Now he had questions? I finally replied. If you saw yourself in the story, then maybe you were the lesson, not the love. He left me on read. Just like before. But this time, I didn't care. Because I didn't need him to understand. I didn't need him to apologize. I just needed to write it. To feel it. To let it go. And the best part. For once, he was the one. Left speechless. I was pouring tea in the kitchen when I heard her voice. Aaliyah. Sarah stood in the doorway. She wasn't smiling. In her hand was the magazine. Open to my story. The same one she probably never imagined I'd have the courage to write. This is about me, isn't it? I looked at her. Calm. Not angry. Not bitter. Just steady. It's not about you. It's about what you both did, and how I survived it. She stared at me like she didn't recognize me anymore. Like the little sister she used to belittle. Had suddenly grown a spine and a voice. People are talking, she said. Friends. Family. Everyone knows it's you. I sipped my tea. Good. You made me look like a villain, she whispered. I paused. I didn't make you anything. I just told the truth. Sarah's eyes dropped. For the first time since the wedding. She looked unsure. Not proud. Not superior. Not victorious. Just small. Do you hate me? She finally asked. I looked out the window. I don't have space for hate anymore. I'm too busy making room for who I'm becoming. She didn't respond. Just stood there with the magazine in her hand. And for the first time, I saw something on her face that she never gave me. A few weeks later, I received an email from a local women's event. They had read my story. They wanted me to speak. Your voice could help others find theirs, the organizer wrote. My hands trembled as I reread the message. Me? Speak? I had always been the quiet one. The one who watched from the corners. The one who loved silently, and lost silently too. But something inside me whispered. This is your moment. Not theirs. Yours. The day of the event, I wore a soft blue outfit. Not loud. Not flashy. Just strong. I stood behind the podium, heart racing. The lights felt hot. The crowd looked endless. But then I remembered every night I cried alone. Every page I filled with pain. Every smile I forced while watching them begin a life that should have been mine. And I began. There was a time I thought love was something you had to earn. That silence was strength. That betrayal meant you weren't enough. The room went quiet. But I've learned, heartbreak doesn't mean you're weak. It means you loved deeply. And survived anyway. Eyes were wet. Heads nodded. I didn't tell them names. Didn't throw blame. I just told the truth, the way it happened. The way it changed me. And when I finished, they clapped. Not for drama. Not for pity. But for the girl who found her voice, and used it. After the speech, I stepped off the stage, hands still shaking. People came up to me, one by one. Thank you for saying what we never could. You put into words what I've lived. Each compliment was soft, but healing. Then I saw him. He stood a little further back. Tall. Simple. Not flashy. I didn't recognize him. But when our eyes met, he smiled, not the kind of smile that tried to impress. The kind that said, I heard you. And I understand. He walked over slowly. "Hi," he said, extending his hand. "I'm Ryan. I run a podcast about women's voices and mental strength. I'd love to feature you." I blinked. "Me?" He noticed my hesitation. "Not just for your story, but for the way you told it. With honesty. With quiet power." For a second, I forgot to breathe. No one had ever described me like that before. Not as beautiful. Not as innocent. But as powerful. I smiled softly. "I'd like that." He handed me his card. No pressure. No expectations. Just kindness. And for the first time in a long time, someone wasn't interested in what I lost. He was interested in who I had become. The podcast studio wasn't as intimidating as I thought it would be. It was quiet. Warm. Just 2 microphones, 2 cups of tea, and Ryan, sitting across from me, gently smiling. "You ready?" he asked. I nodded. My voice felt calm now. Not shaking like it used to. He pressed record. "Welcome to her side of the story. Today, we have a writer whose words are healing thousands. Her story started with heartbreak, but it didn't end there." He looked at me. "Aaliyah, tell us where it began." I took a deep breath. And I spoke. About Zane. About Sarah. About betrayal and silence and losing myself in someone else's promises. But more than that, I spoke about healing. "I thought he was my future," I said. "Turns out, he was just the lesson I had to survive to meet my future self." The interview ended, but something else began. Within a week, messages poured in. "Your story saved me. I thought I was alone. Now I know I'm not. I found the courage to leave because of your voice." I cried reading them. Not because I was sad, but because the girl who once couldn't speak was now helping others find their voice. I didn't expect her to listen. But she did. Sarah. The sister who once smirked at my silence, now sat in her car, hands frozen on the steering wheel, as my voice played through the speakers. "I wasn't just heartbroken," I said in the podcast. "I was humiliated. Left to wonder if my pain even mattered to the people I loved most. But I survived. Not because someone saved me, but because I stopped waiting for them to." She heard every word. The parts about Zane. The parts about her. And worst of all for her, the parts that had nothing to do with them anymore. Because that's where I had grown. Beyond the betrayal. Beyond her. Later that night, she came home quietly. Didn't say anything. Just stood in the hallway, holding her phone like it burned her. I looked up from my book, calm. She opened her mouth to say something, then closed it again. There were no insults this time. No smirks. No fake concern. Just silence. The same silence she once used to hurt me. But now, it meant something else entirely. She finally knew. I didn't need her apology. I had outgrown her shadow. It came as an email. Just like the first invitation. But this one was different. It was from London. A global conference on healing, resilience, and women's voices. They had heard my podcast. Read my story in translation. We'd be honored to have you speak. Your story is helping women all over the world. I reread the message twice. Then again. And once more, just to make sure I wasn't dreaming. I stared out the window that evening, thinking about the girl I used to be. The one who hid in her room, heartbroken over a man who never fought for her. The one who flinched at her sister's words. Who thought her voice wasn't loud enough to matter. And now? Now she was being flown across oceans. Because her truth echoed louder than betrayal ever could. I called my mother. She cried on the phone. Aaliyah, you've made us all proud. Even she had changed. Not because she saw my pain, but because she couldn't ignore my power anymore. I booked the flight. Packed my journal. My speech notes. And my favorite pen, the one I used to scribble all those unsent letters to Zane. Now, I was writing for the world. And this time, they were listening. The plane touched down. London. I looked out the window at a city I'd never been to. But somehow, it felt like freedom. No memories here. No familiar faces. Just possibility. The hotel was beautiful. Simple. Elegant. Like it didn't need to try too hard to impress, and maybe that's what I was becoming too. That evening, there was a welcome dinner for all the speakers. I wore a navy blue dress. Hair down. No makeup, just confidence. And as I walked into that room, I wasn't the girl they left behind anymore. That's when I heard someone call my name. Aaliyah? I turned. It was Ryan. The podcast host. I hadn't expected him here. But of course he was. He was moderating the panel I was on. He smiled warmly. I told you your voice would travel. I smiled back. And I believed you more than I believed myself. We sat beside each other through the dinner. Laughing easily. Talking about books, purpose. And how pain can either poison you or push you. He looked at me for a long second. You didn't just survive, Aaliyah. You transformed. And for the first time in my life, I believed it too. The room was massive. High ceilings. Hundreds of seats. Spotlights pointing straight at the stage. I stood behind the curtain, holding my speech. But it wasn't the paper that steadied me. It was everything I had survived to get here. Zane. Sarah. The silence. The betrayal. Every wound had turned into a word. And every word had become a step toward this moment. The host called my name. Please welcome. Aaliyah Raymond. Applause. I stepped out slowly. No heels. Just soft flats. I wanted to feel the ground. I looked out at the crowd. So many faces I didn't know. And yet, I had never felt more seen. I once believed that silence was strength. That being quiet, obedient, forgiving, was what made you good. But silence didn't protect me. It erased me. I paused. You could hear a pin drop. I was betrayed by the two people I loved most. And for a long time, I thought that meant I was unworthy. But now I know, it meant they were. Because people don't betray you because of who you are. They betray you because of who they aren't. A few gasps. A few tears. And then, a soft, powerful silence. I closed with this. You may not get the apology. You may not get justice. But you can get your story back. And that is everything. When I stepped off the stage, people stood. Not clapping for my pain. But for my power. And that was the loudest I had ever been. 2 days after my speech, I was back in my hotel room, packing. My phone buzzed. I almost didn't check it. But something pulled my eyes toward the screen. Zane. Again. But this time, not just a message. A voice note. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to delete it without listening. Part of me wanted to know what ghosts sound like when they finally realize they were the ones who disappeared. I pressed play. Aaliyah. I saw your speech. I read the article again. I heard your podcast. I don't know what to say. I thought I understood everything. But I didn't. You were never too much. You were never wrong. I was just too small to see the woman standing in front of me. He paused. I know I hurt you. And I know you don't owe me anything. But I hope you find peace. Real peace. I sat there quietly. No tears. No shaking hands. No racing heart. Because this time, I didn't need closure. I was the closure. I replied simply. Thank you for the message. I already found peace, long before you found guilt. Then I blocked the number. Not out of spite. But because I was finally done letting the past interrupt my future. When I stepped out of the airport, the city looked the same. Same streets. Same faces. Same quiet buzz of life moving on. But I wasn't the same. The girl who left months ago. Heart cracked, voice trembling, drowning in someone else's silence. She never returned. I walked into my home. My mother greeted me with tears and warm arms. Even Sarah was there. She didn't say much. Just nodded. And that was fine. Because I didn't come back for confrontation. I came back free. My room was exactly how I left it. But I didn't feel the urge to hide in it anymore. Instead, I opened my laptop. Typed the title of my next book. The Girl Who Lost Everything. And found herself instead. My story was no longer about him. No longer about her. Not even about the pain. It was about the becoming. Outside, it began to rain softly. But for the first time in years, I didn't see it as sadness. I saw it as rebirth. Because the truth is, he married my sister. But I married my purpose. And it turned out to be the greatest love of all.